So how do we avoid the guilt trip when we're sending low offers to people? Well, everybody knows that the key to success in real estate is to buy low and sell high. Sounds pretty simple on the surface, right? I mean, let's be honest. In order to buy low, you'll have to send out a lot of low offers to a lot of people. Offers that have the potential to anger and offend a lot of sellers. And for many new investors, this can be a huge stumbling block because nobody wants to insult or disappoint people. Well, luckily, this kind of mental agony is completely unnecessary, and it can be pretty easily eliminated with just a few simple changes in one's perspective. So let me just ask you, do you ever feel guilty about sending low offers to people? I mean, do you find it difficult to offer somebody a fraction of their property's value when you know they're in a tight spot and they need to sell now? I've heard some folks argue that sending low offers like this is a sleazy or unethical thing to do, as if we're somehow taking advantage of vulnerable people in their time of need. But in my opinion, this is absolute nonsense, and I'd like to explain why it's a completely misguided perspective. With any luck, I'll help you develop the right mindset for making low offers without that dreaded guilt trip. So let's start by understanding your role as a real estate investor. If you're talking to the right kinds of sellers, in other words, that small segment of society that is more than happy to sell their property for pennies on the dollar, you're going to encounter at least a few sob stories along the way. A lot of property owners are motivated to sell because they are in a tight spot and they need money right now. Essentially, they need somebody to bail them out, and they've drawn the conclusion that you must be that person. But here's the thing. It's not your job to bail them out. You didn't cause this person's tragic misfortune, and let's be honest, it was never your responsibility to swoop in and save the day. Even though these financial bailouts will occasionally be the byproduct of your business activity, don't lose sight of the fact that your number one goal as an investor is to buy properties with a higher monetary value than the amount of your investment. You're investing money with the expectation of financial gain. This is literally the definition of what an investor does. So let me ask you, are you an investor or not? If you're serious about this, you only need to do two things. Number one, find the right kinds of sellers. Number two, offer them the minimum viable price that they will accept. That's it. The only trick is everyone has a different minimum viable price that they're willing to accept. And the only way to figure out what those numbers are is to start making some offers. So what is value exactly? Well, the funny thing about value is it comes in many different forms. The word means different things to different people. To some people, value comes in the form of straight up money in cash. To others, value is found in the alleviation of some kind of pain that they're in. Some people find great value in the elimination of a problem, and others place a high value on things that are easy or convenient for them. Now, I've worked with a lot of different sellers who were more than happy to accept my crazy low offers. What they valued was the fact that I was able to eliminate an annoying problem in their life and make the process very easy for them. Their property had become a major nuisance, and by offering to remove that nuisance, I was giving them all the value they could ever hope for. And even though the money would matter a great deal to me, and maybe it would matter a lot to you, not every property owner cares about the same things. Everybody has a different set of problems to deal with, and many motivated sellers have a completely different perspective on money than most people do. Some people are in desperate need of an easy button, and it pays to be the one who can offer this kind of solution. Now, on the same coin, it's important to recognize that when you send out a lot of low offers, many people will not agree with your value proposition, and they'll simply say no to you. And that's okay too. Your proposed solution to their problem, in other words, the terms of your offer, won't always be the right fit for everybody, and the seller has every right to turn you down, and in many cases, they will, believe me. If a seller isn't getting what they need from a deal, it's their responsibility to say no to you, and you really can't fault them for it. One of the primary goals of a real estate investor is to find the sellers who want the kind of value that they can offer. These are the kinds of property owners who are willing to give away large portions of free equity in the properties that they own. And this usually happens when the people are apathetic and want the property out of their lives. And let's get one thing straight. These deals won't happen without the seller's full written consent. There's no tricking people into doing these kinds of deals. So let's start by assigning responsibility. When a seller is dealing with their own personal problems or financial difficulties, remember that these are their problems, not yours. You cannot make business decisions based on circumstances that you didn't cause and that you can't control. And let's be honest, when you send someone a low offer, you're not forcing them to do anything. You're simply providing them with one possible solution to consider. It's their responsibility to decide whether or not it actually meets their needs and then respond accordingly. The only time an investor will ever feel guilt during the offer-making process is when they're making unwarranted assumptions about the seller, which is a nasty side effect of throwing emotions into a decision that ought to be completely unemotional. In most cases, there's really only one thing we can know with absolute certainty. We know the price that we are willing to pay. And this is all a reasonable investor can base their decision on. Making an offer is the simple act of doing the math and then presenting your opportunity to the seller. If the seller doesn't like your offer, that doesn't mean you made the wrong offer. In fact, it may even be proof that you're making the right kinds of offers. Remember, you aren't a mind reader. You're giving people the numbers that work for you, and the only way to know what any seller is willing to accept is to test the boundaries. In the end, it really just boils down to these three simple steps. Step number one is to come up with the offer price that cannot fail you. If that seller accepts your offer, you know for certain it's a slam dunk. Step two is to show your number to the seller. So you can tell this to them verbally, you can write it down on a piece of paper and mail it to them, you can email it to them, you can text it to them. Just get that number in front of them so that they know what you're willing to do, and then assess their response and act accordingly. It's that simple. The moment we start making offers that we think the seller will like, we start making some very dangerous and kind of foolish assumptions about the person we're negotiating with. When we make offers that compromise our profit margin because of our own biases, we are literally changing our business model and moving towards a destination that eventually is going to catch up with us and hurt us. Many businesses have crashed and burned because they failed to stick to these simple principles. Please, I beg you, do not become one of those unfortunate casualties. So let's establish some simple facts. In order to stay in the right frame of mind when sending low offers, you need to eliminate the emotions from your decision-making process. So let's make sure we're all on the same page. Fact number 1. The seller's problems are not your problem. Repeat after me. The seller's problems are not my problem, because they're not. When a seller is in a desperate situation and they need cash now, it's pretty common for them to tell you their story of hardship and tragedy, and the world is full of people who are going through difficult situations and need help. I'll be the first to admit that. I talk to them all the time. I know them well, and you probably know them well too. They're all over the place. Everybody has a hard thing that they're dealing with, and it's only human to feel sorry for someone in a difficult situation. But again, don't lose sight of the fact that it's not your problem. You didn't create the situation that they're in, and you didn't cause this hardship in their life. You're just running a business. In order for you to make money, you need to buy properties for far less than their market value. It's nothing personal, and it has nothing to do with who they are. It's just basic math. They're not under any obligation to accept your offer. You're just giving them one option based on what the property is worth to you. That's it. It's not your fault that they need to sell now. So don't waste your emotional energy trying to shoulder a burden that isn't yours to bear. Fact number 2. You don't owe the seller anything. I always find it kind of curious how some sellers will get offended by a low offer, but from the perspective of an investor, it's just a number. And the reality is, this number is 100% arbitrary until the contract is accepted by all parties. With every offer I make, I am literally offering what the property is worth to me. And in most cases, it's not worth that much because I have an infinite number of other opportunities to choose from. If somebody doesn't like my offer, that's totally fine. I'm not offended by that. I'm just being honest with them about what I'm willing to put on the line to bail them out of their problem. And one thing is certain, I'm not going to inflate my number just because they are desperate for cash. Their desperate situation is totally unfortunate and I can feel for them. But again, at the end of the day, it's still not my problem. Not to mention, if their property really is worth what they think it is, they shouldn't have any problems finding a buyer who will gladly pay their full asking price like tomorrow, or at least within the next week. If they're really correct about their property's market value, then they don't need me and I don't need them. That's the honest truth. There's really no reason I should even be talking to them because it should be very easy for them to make a lot more money off their property talking to almost anybody else in the world. Fact number 3. The property's value is for you as the investor to decide. Let's get another thing straight. There is no such thing as guaranteed value in real estate. That is, not until after money has changed hands. A property is only worth the amount that somebody is willing to pay for it. Any other assessment is nothing more than just pure speculation. A real estate appraisal does not guarantee what a property is worth. It's kind of just an educated guess. The only way to know for sure what a property is valued at is to see how much somebody has actually paid for it in the very recent history. And even if your property is appraised at $300,000, for example, this number still isn't a guarantee that anyone will actually pay $300,000 for the property. So whenever somebody tells me that their property is worth X number of dollars, as if they have some all-knowing crystal ball, I always have to chuckle to myself because they clearly don't understand how real estate valuations work. Fact number 4, a seller is under no obligation to accept your offer. There's one simple reason why I'm always comfortable sending an offer to someone for 10% of their market value. It's because all they have to do is say no to me, and we can go our separate ways. In fact, the sooner somebody says no to me, the better, because I know a lot of people are going to say no. And the sooner I hear no, it means I can stop wasting time with that prospect and move on to the next opportunity. I am fully aware that my offers aren't going to make sense for most people. I totally get that. I don't expect any particular person to accept it, but I know from experience that statistically, when I send out enough of these offers, there's always somebody who will accept it eventually. And the funny thing is, most of the people who accept my offers aren't so much desperate as they are apathetic. They just don't really care. And let's be honest, if somebody really did care about their property, they could easily sell it for way more than what I'm offering them. But you know what? They won't. A seller's apathy usually becomes quite clear before the deal is done, which is yet another reason why I really don't have any trouble sleeping at night. Fact number 5, you are offering them a better solution than anybody else has. If a seller says yes to your offer, it's usually pretty safe to assume that you're giving them a better solution than anybody else has before you. Just think about it. Why would they accept your offer if they had better options on the table elsewhere? If a seller says no to your offer, more power to them. Remember, you're not trying to strong-arm them or coerce them into doing anything that they don't want to do. You're just presenting them with an opportunity, however good or bad that might be, and at the end of the day, they have a lot more control over their destiny than you do. And as we wrap this up, just remember, a good deal will always be mutually beneficial. In the end, the only transactions you're ever going to end up doing are the ones that both parties have determined to be mutually beneficial. In order for a deal to get done, both the buyer and the seller have to accept it and follow through to get the thing closed. If the buyer doesn't like it, they're not going to send the offer. If the seller doesn't like it, they won't accept it. It's that simple. And sure, an investor could always offer more. That is, if they don't really care about abiding by their established business model. But, if an investor isn't concerned about making a profit, then, why are they doing this business in the first place? Some people are more concerned about helping others through charity and giving. And you know what? I think that's awesome. But there are much more effective ways to help people than through some misguided attempt at running a business and offering more money than is actually going to make financial sense for you. Think about it. If somebody is criticizing you or looking down on you because of your business model of sending low offers to sellers, why aren't they sending these sellers better offers? If they can't or won't put their money where their mouth is, then what position are they in to tell you how to run your business? Sending low offers can be a real mind game for a lot of investors, and it actually took me a lot of years to get over this myself. But when you boil it all down to the numbers and logic of the process, it's actually pretty simple stuff. Understand what makes a good deal and stick to your guns, and when all is said and done, you'll be really glad you did.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, go fuck yourself. That ain't happening. Thank you for your good opportunity. It ain't my opportunity. I'm keeping my property. See ya.
I don't appreciate you being a scam trying to work through the county records. You're a scam. Goodbye.
Yes, this is Joy. I live in Texas, and I spoke with you. Your offer is quite insulting. I paid probably 4 times as much as for this property as if I would give it away. This is very insulting. No, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, my name's David. I own some property in Berry County, and you don't need to bother yourself with worrying about my taxes. I don't owe that much tax to begin with, and I'll never sell my property.